welcome back to the Wellness Junction Podcast. My name is Jordana, and the Wellness Junction Podcast is a safe space where we can have open and intergenerational conversations about the intersection of mental health and sexual and reproductive health in the lives of young people. This is episode 2. So in our very first episode, I sat down with the very fun and very energetic and very witty Stacey Onyango, who is a clinical psychologist, and we started off this podcast by discussing the basics of mental health. And so we continue that discussion today. We will be focusing mainly on sexual and reproductive health. And listen, she brought on her passionate advocacy for why we need to have accurate and consistent information when it comes to how we can take better care of our sexual and reproductive health. I am sure you will absolutely enjoy this episode as much as we loved recording it. So thank you so much for being here, and let's just get to it. Welcome to the Wellness Junction Podcast. On this show, we engage with young people to explore their lived experiences with mental, sexual, and reproductive health and well-being. We also hear from experts who provide helpful insights and practical steps to navigating vulnerabilities that come with mental and reproductive health. I am Jordana, the host of the show, and I am so glad you're here. We'll speak a bit more about sexual and reproductive health.
Okay.
First of all, I think it suffices for us to note that in as much as there have been a lot of conversations around mental health and sexual and reproductive health and rights, these topics are still very much, taboo topics to talk about.
Definitely.
There's still a lot of stigma. I think that's more accurate to put it. There's still a lot of stigma in speaking up about our own mental health issues. For example, sharing that you are going through depression or you are going through anxiety, you have, a mental disorder, a mental illness. Those issues it still takes a lot from us to speak about, especially when it comes to lived experiences, because there is not a lot of accurate information. So are people going to believe me? Do I sound a bit, delusional?
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Do people feel like this? Is this something that actually exists? Or that sort of thing? And even when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, and I think that is even much worse because, we are still not socialized to openly and candidly speak about not just sex, but sexual health and our reproductive health. And I mean, women and young girls are more disproportionately affected by that. And so we can just start by defining a bit about, sexual health. When we speak about sexual health and reproductive health, and then we can talk separately about the rights that are related to that. So what are we talking about when we speak about sexual and reproductive health?
Alright. So sexual health is the state of physical, emotional, mental, again, and social well-being in relation to sexuality. And this encompasses the ability for one to be able to enjoy and express one's sexuality without fear of discrimination, coercion, or violence.
Right.
While also, in the same breath, having access to the knowledge, the means to protect oneself from sexually transmitted infections and disease, and also unintended pregnancy. I know that was a lot.
Okay, you can just break it down for us into those nitty-gritties that you have spoken about.
Yeah. So the nitty-gritties are, when you look at sex and then the health part of it, it's not just laying down with someone and, having relations. There's really a lot that goes into it. And maybe I'll even start with the last part of having the knowledge to protect oneself from sexually transmitted infections and disease and unintended or unplanned pregnancies.
Yeah.
I think one of the avenues where young people start to know about sex, it's usually through pornography. Now, the way pornography is typically depicted, rarely would you see individuals putting on a condom or there being discussions of family planning or how to prevent. That's the truth. That's the truth. Children, let me not call them children, so young adults at the ages of 13, the teen year, the truth the hard truth that no one wants to hear is that they will experiment.
Of course.
They will experiment. And the other thing is also, they, at that age group, the Bible truth that they believe is usually from their friends. As the parent, you will preach all you want, but their friend is the God in your house at that moment. When they say it, it goes. Yeah. And this is why I am a very big advocate for starting early. Start to teach about bodily autonomy early.
Right.
Explain these things early. Yeah. Because the avenue that they find themselves starting to learn with is not the best. It's really not the best. Through porn, they're, as you say, misinformed totally.
Yeah.
And also pornography comes with, of course, its own other issues. That's a story for another day. Yeah, so there's that one part. The other part is also the ability to enjoy, express one's sexuality without fear of discrimination, coercion, violence. And, when you're talking even about sexual health, it's not just about heterosexual relationships. It's also about homosexual relationships, yeah? How are these different groups and these different individuals able to express themselves? If you have love for a man or you have love for a woman and vice versa and all that shebang, how are you able to, are you free to express this love? Finyilia mahali.
Someone has you on a chokehold.
Someone has you on a chokehold. And also, are you protected? Will you be attacked just because you have feelings and affection for someone of the same gender? Those are realities that truly, at this point in time, we should not shy away from speaking about. Because it is the truth of the society that we live in. It is the truth. It is a worldwide truth. It's not nice. It doesn't make me less of a Christian or less of a, because I acknowledge that, but it's the truth. I am a queer-friendly clinical psychologist. I don't judge. I respect you, irrespective of your sexuality.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me. Yes. And now, when we're even talking about this, it's very vital that we are able to acknowledge the fact that how even people express their sexuality in regards to sexual health, able to do it without fear of being discriminated against. And I mean, I'm about to say something controversial.
Let's go there.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and I thank God, because I don't know how I would have done it, that all through my schooling years, I've gone to mixed schools. So there's really things I don't relate. Like, what do you mean you guys were all girls in a class? Where were the men? Or what do you mean you guys are all men?
Well, the teacher.
Yeah. Where do you mean you are all men in a class? I swear I really struggle to conceptualize it sometimes. I do understand it, but I struggle a bit. When I was going to school, it's a mixed school and it was boarding. And in the event that, boys were more or boys, typically it was boys were more than girls. You'd be meant to see if your desk mate was a girl, the next person next to you should be a boy. Yeah?
Yeah.
And there's that. And so when it comes to just how the Kenyan landscape looks like, where you find children being expelled from schools or being accused of what they term as sexually deviant behaviors.
Right.
Guys, it's 2024.
It's 2020.
It's 2024. We're a few months shy of 2025.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Vision 2030 should find us with that open. Like, Vision 2030, we should have bridged that gap. Yeah, we really need to do better. We really need to do better. Of course, there's other controversial issues to it, but there's still a lot more that can be done to really stop these, let me just call it bad behaviors that are meted against children in school, where they are punished. I've never understood exactly out of fear for what. Maybe I'll get there one day.
When you finally are interacting with your own child, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, or the more I also keep on learning in my practice, and even as I keep on teaching and giving out knowledge on sexual and reproductive health, maybe I'll get there. But yet, I really find it quite barbaric, to be said the least. And then now when it comes to reproductive rights, let me move along. Reproductive rights, no, we're talking about reproductive health, yeah. Reproductive health is the overall health of the reproductive system. And at least everyone has an idea of a reproductive system if you've sat in a science class somewhere. As I was saying earlier, it might not be anatomically correct, but uko na ka idea flani. At least you have the idea. So reproductive health is the overall health of the reproductive system. And it basically includes a person's ability to have a safe and healthy pregnancy. That's one part of it. There's also access to contraception. This applies to both men and women. Let me even go back. Even safe and healthy pregnancy truly applies to both men and women.
For sure.
Applies to both men and women. Yeah. The other aspect to it is being able to receive care for reproductive related issues. A few examples I'd give is maybe fertility issues, childbirth, if maybe there's some sort of sexual dysfunction, both in men and women, that can be either erectile dysfunction in men and vaginismus in women. So all those count as reproductive health issues. Yeah.
For sure. That's really cool. I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about the sex education that is going on or that is not going on in our homes, in our schools, in our churches, and all the places where we meet. But I mean, we have a whole podcast within which to discuss that. And it's part of why we think that these conversations are very crucial. When we are talking about, I mean, I really just want us to, even just going back to sexual health, the fact that like an individual's needs as far as sexual health and reproductive health are concerned, they vary across their lives. I mean, what my sister who is 11 years old needs to know and understand about sexual health definitely hugely differs from what I need to understand and from what my mom needs to understand, because we are all at very different stages in life. And so but one thing that cuts across is, and I mean, just even as we were speaking about mental health, one thing that cuts across is correct information. And there is this notion that has been in our circles a lot in the Kenyan context. I don't know about, I mean, I definitely should look into other African countries or like just worldwide what they state with that is. But there's this misconception that when you speak about sexual health or when you teach children about naming their private parts correctly, or when you teach people about contraception, that you then are encouraging sexual deviant behavior, or that you are promoting, promiscuity, that, the very minute a person is educated about sex, the next minute they'll be out looking for a partner to have sex with. And I mean,
it takes a deep breath.
Right. That is very problematic. And it is education and correct information is actually one of the things that we really are targeting to improve with this podcast. So can we just speak a bit more about the concept of how being informed about your sexuality as a person? I mean, there is people who, I mean, especially for girls, there's young women who have experiences I know of, who have grown into their adulthood and they have really never checked to see what their actual vaginas look like. Because it's like something you're supposed to be afraid of. It's like something that you're supposed to stay apart from, but it's also something that's a part of you. Conversations in our household were never really had about sex or anything related to that. And when they were had, it was basically, don't even look at a boy for more than 5 seconds. Do not ever. Do you want to fall pregnant? It's like, if you looked at a boy, you will be pregnant the next minute. And that's very problematic, because then we grow up and then we realize, guys, where was that education you owed me?
Where do I start? Let me say it this way. Nikianza, sitamaliza.
If you start, you will not be able to finish.
If I start today, I'm really passionate about this. Mainly because, just for me as Stacey Nyango,
Right.
I've seen the very big difference in my life on having the right education and information and how it's protected me from one, being able to not make wrong decisions, but also being able to make right decisions, and also being able to have choice.
Okay.
That's the other thing. Being able to have choice. Yeah. And even as I go into it, I'll just start by saying, I really don't know where the fear comes from.
That really does need to be debunked.
We really need to talk about it. We have all the time anyway. I've never understood exactly where the fear stems from. But also, I also feel a big attribute to it might also be fear coupled up with shame.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So as you say, you don't talk about it. There's shame and embarrassment about it. That's one aspect of it. Now when we are going deeply and looking at sexual and reproductive health and why there needs to be information and knowledge, educative materials and other resources targeted to it, the things that we could potentially solve, reduce, or hopefully completely eliminate are a lot.
Right.
Now, in no particular order, the one that now I'm a young woman. Yeah, I'm a young woman, very well into my reproductive years. I feel like one of the reasons why all persons, all people need to really have the right knowledge, the correct knowledge and information is to be able to negotiate sex. Believe it or not, to be able to negotiate sex. And I say to be able to negotiate sex because of this. When you are not sexually experienced, and this has been an unfortunate event for some people.
Right.
You're off campus, off high school, you go to campus, get your first boyfriend, you try to sexually experiment, both of you are ill-informed, or I'll only put the head, I'll only put the tip and whatnot, you end up pregnant. So pregnancy is just one part of it. There's also the potential of having other diseases and whatnot.
And there's how that impacts your mental
And then
health,
there's
for
also
sure.
that, there's the ripple effect. You probably don't have the financial resources, you're young, you're not in a mental space, it's like a child raising another child. Being able to negotiate for sex, I say that because I feel it's really paramount for us, even when you're in the context, now we're talking about in the context of a consensual relationship where two adults have come together and they want to have sex, you're able to say, I cannot lay with you without a condom because one, we've not yet tested each other. What's the next best thing that can happen? We use protection. And you don't just use protection because people use protection. You use it correctly, correct use of it.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to, now planning yourself and you decide you want to go under contraception, you go by use of reference because your friend said, by the way, I had the injection and it was working for me. And then you go to your doctor and you'll be like, Rafiki yangu alisema, my friend said the injection one works for her, so me I want that.
And injection as well.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I
being
get
able
you.
to now understand these things are also now when you go to the doctor, you still advocate for your rights. Yes, that's the other thing. You advocate for your health, but also you're able to, you're given the alternatives and they're able to, advise you accordingly.
Yeah.
The other thing that this one pains me a lot, but it also just how it's unfortunate that the misinformation and also or lack of education, specifically for young people, I feel like it hinders people also being able to speak about abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
It hinders them from, and especially children.
Yeah.
Because now you're not, as you're saying, when you speak, for example, to your 11-year-old sister, to yourself as Jordana, and then to your mother, the information needed is very different. But the one thing I'll stick to, I've said before, I think before I've ever said, and maybe it's in public record, where I said, when you're teaching about, bodily autonomy, use the correct language, like age-appropriate language. But I want to take it back and categorically. English has gone. The English has just gone anyway. Let's say that call it what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
If it's breasts, say breasts. If it's a penis, say it's a penis. If it's a vagina, say it's a vagina. If it's buttocks, say it's buttocks. If it's legs, say it's legs. If it's thighs, don't be saying susu. Don't be teach the child exactly what it is. And I, of course, understand where, you have to use sort of polite language.
Yeah.
That is one thing. That is one thing. But I still insist that you should be able to sit down. If you're having sex to have a child, you should have the courage to also sit this child down. Yes. And tell them, listen, this is these are parts that are special to you. Yeah. No one should touch or do anything that it's not. That way, we get further ahead. And someone once said this statement that I resonated with, which was maybe one of the reasons why even the way the education system is set up in this country, it's so pulled away where it's like barely nothing is being taught. And it gives leeway sometimes to even lead to exploitation of people. Because now why? You don't have that information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And I personally hold controversial opinions about certain things. At the end of the day, the things that are fundamentally right are that education and the information is one step of starting it. Being able to be comfortable with our nakedness is one way of starting it.
Oh my goodness.
Being able to even teach, our girls that, periods are not something to be embarrassed about.
Right.
Yeah. Would even help us advocate for, getting quality period products and not being poisoned by I don't know what.
Yeah.
Every other day we are fighting something. Yeah. At least let's get one area right as we continue the fight for other areas. So I really believe education goes along, and it goes a long way, not only for the child at 5, the child at 10, the child at 15, even at 20, when now, someone is wanting to experiment with sex, or now they've come to the realization that they want to, have sex. That's a whole different ball game for them. Yeah. How do they protect themselves? Do they have sex with everybody? Choice again. Yeah. How do they know that they are compatible with someone? How do you protect yourself from bad experiences? Because it's the world, so it's only you that has now to arm yourself with this information. But again, the right and correct ones. The right and correct information.
Yeah. It really does matter.
Yeah.
That's I think, Apo, you really have brought out the point of accurate information, Stacey. I'd like for us to just briefly speak about rights. So when it comes to reproductive rights and sexual rights, can you just speak to us about what does that mean? Sexual rights. People have sexual rights. What does that even mean? And reproductive rights. Yeah.
I like that you ask me these questions of just asking me, please explain what that means, which is very important because, the first part is also to understand, okay, we throw these words around: reproductive health, mental health, reproductive rights, sexual health, but zinamaanisha,
what do they mean?
Exactly, yeah. So maybe I can start with sexual rights. So sexual rights are human rights that are related to sexuality.
Right.
Yeah, that's just to start it. And these rights usually include the right to decide freely on sexual matters, the right to consent, the right to access sexual health services and education without facing stigma or discrimination. Can the church say hallelujah?
Hallelujah.
Yes. And maybe I'd even say, so you see, it's literally, earlier on I'd said that, and I've kept on saying as we're speaking all along, that you have an idea of your, the human anatomy. You have an idea. So really, it is your right to be educated. Like that science textbook in school, it is supposed to have the correct information there to teach you. And teaching you empowers you.
Right.
And then there's the spillover effect. Empowerment gives you have the knowledge, it helps you in decision making, in choice, and whatnot. Yeah. So sexual rights, apart from just being human rights related to sexuality, now some of the things that I was explaining are just, it gives you also the right to decide freely on sexual matters.
Yeah.
That is also the right to decide who do you want to love. Yeah. Because that's a sexual matter. Who do you want to have sex with? But you see, that's one part of it. So you can't decide to have just with anyone.
Right.
Because there's also the aspect of the right to consent. So as this person agreed to it, children cannot consent. Children cannot consent.
Just to make that clear.
Children cannot consent. Yeah. And also the one that's very vital to our discussion today is the right to access sexual health services and education without facing stigma or discrimination. And I know there's individuals that have unfortunately had not so pleasant experiences in hospital or where they're getting their health care services from, where maybe they want to, even test for either a disease or an infection, or they want to go and get condoms. And I know we are not prudes in this country because we are having children. That's it. I know we are not prudes in this country because we are having children. But even where, now you'll find, for example, I'm a woman and let's say I'm a sexually active woman and I carry my condom in my handbag.
Right.
How will I be labeled?
Promiscuous.
Yeah. But I'm protecting first of all, I've made a choice.
Yeah.
Second, I've given consent. Then third, I want to now protect myself and the person I choose to engage in sex with.
Yeah, and you do have the right to access the products that will protect you.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I usually fail to understand where there's the, sort of, it's quite, for men it's allowed, for women it's frowned.
Don't ever.
Frowned upon.
Right?
Please be, and I've said it so I'll repeat it, be an advocate for your health and always protect yourself. Quickly go into what reproductive rights mean. So reproductive rights are, again, legal rights that are related to reproduction and reproductive health. And these include the right to be able to access contraception. A very controversial one is also the right to be able to access safe and legal abortion. And then the other one is also the right to be able to access reproductive healthcare services, as well as the right to make an informed choice about one's reproductive life. Yeah.
And all through, we are just discovering that access to information is our right.
Yeah.
We do have rights to access information. I mean, of course, in the course of this podcast, I'm really interested. I will really be interested to sit down with someone who is in the justice system for us to actually verify to us that the Constitution actually does give you a right to access. Because I know those are actually they are constitutional rights for people to have access to sexual and reproductive health and services and the correct information. Stacey, you have touched a bit on the stigma that exists around some of the not just information. I mean, we have spoken extensively about information, but when it comes to products and services, for example, if I went to a chemist or to a healthcare institution to, for example, get condoms, there's that look that someone throws you, sort of telling you, you're not supposed to be doing that. And yet, it is a person's right. And especially, when we bring this down to specifically communities like in the rural area where everyone knows everyone, it even makes it that much harder to
freely, especially for young people.
Yeah.
When a much older person goes to a chemist or a clinic to have access to either a product or a service, no eyes are thrown at them, like that.
Yeah.
But for like, let's say for me, if I went to a clinic and I am asking information about I want to get an implant for contraception.
Yeah.
And someone in my local, for example, like the person I will meet first of all is someone from my church, or someone from my school, and they know my mom, and so they might even go behind my back and be like, your child came to the dispensary asking for contraception. Do you probably maybe need to check into that? And that does hinder young people, especially from those contexts where everyone knows everyone, from freely, without stigma, without discrimination, having access. And because of the issue you spoke about initially about confidentiality.
Yeah.
In that case, confidentiality should, in most cases, should apply. But they don't. And which is not good practice, because then it means that the next time I think about going to get a service, I will be less likely, or I'll have to go really far just so that my confidentiality is protected, which is my right.
Yes.
I mean, let's just speak a bit more about that whole, I don't want to call it insanity, although it sort of is, but just a bit more about that whole concept of young people specifically being stigmatized for being open about their sexuality and seeking out products and services to serve them.
I actually have quite a different experience.
For you?
Yes.
Oh.
So there's people in this country that are doing us proud and well. Shout out to my school's counseling center.
Yay.
Yeah, and specifically the lady who is in charge of the sexual and reproductive health section of it. I remember my very first day on campus. Yeah, it was actually day one on campus. That was orientation before even the school starts the next week. And as the orientation was going on, we actually had like a demonstration of how to, from her. She's called Lydia Winder, a very amazing lady. And she was there teaching. She had what is it called? I don't want to call it it was an imitation of a
mock penis.
Like a mock penis. And she was teaching how to put a condom on, and there was like a mock vagina, and she was teaching how to put a condom on, and even the female condom. And my school, every year, I think at least twice, or if it's, because we have 3 semesters in the year, so if it's not at least 2 of the semesters, at least 1, there is sexual and reproductive health program of some sort.
That is really cool.
If it's either HIV week, there is always something. And they encourage people to test. They encourage people to get condoms. In fact, they even try to find partnerships where condoms are being handed out to individuals. Because let's stop pretending. Maybe we can start there. Yeah. Let's stop pretending. That's one part of it. So I felt like for me, the environment where I was in, people were not pretending. They were actually being very honest. Yeah. And that's why I actually had a very positive encounter. And they'd always encourage you to even go test with a partner. Of course, putting in measures just in case of anything to, protect confidentiality of both. They in her office, they allow you to walk in during office hours, book a slot, and you just walk into the office and say, hi, I've come in and I'd like to go in for an HIV test. That's how much it was encouraged.
That's really nice.
And even for me in particular, some of the courses that I had to do with sexuality. Yeah, I know I had a course that had to do with sexuality. And that lecturer was the right lecturer for that course, because he was not shy. He touched on everything and anything.
Right.
Truly preparing us for this line of work. Where shame, I think all my shame about sexual health, okay, not all, percentage. I left it in that class. Yeah. So that for me was a very positive experience.
Right.
From what I'd experienced either before or from what I'd had other people talk about or report. Now, I've also seen and heard from other people very bad or different experiences.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'd also want to commend, really, that I've seen institutions do, I'm sure every public institution usually has like a clinic or a health center.
Yeah.
And I've seen there's other institutions, other medical institutions that partner with them and are really big on disseminating and pushing this information. So I'm not here to, say, yes, there's a lot that's being done wrong to an extent, but I'll have to be honest and say there's also 100% some that people are getting it right. And something that I've shared before is let's also be proactive individuals. So even if you're a parent, be proactive on behalf of your child until they reach the age where they're able to, stand on their own 2 feet and go and seek this information for themselves. You as the adult, be proactive. They're giving out free condoms there. You're, what do they call the people in campus who are broke?
Comrades?
Yes, you're a comrade. You're a comrade and you cannot, you can't afford the condoms. Go there to the clinic at the dispenser and pick some.
Yeah.
You're a comrade and you want to, start having sex. It's a choice that you come and you want to make. Go book an appointment. Ask them, hi, I'd like to get counseling on this, and this.
Yeah.
Those people are being paid there to give that service. Let's really be proactive. Yeah, guys. That one I say, let's be proactive. You're a parent and you're worried about your child. Oh, now they've started their periods. Now they'll get pregnant if they look at a boy. Be serious. Like, that's the best I can say. Be serious. And the seriousness is, that can't happen. No one has ever fallen at someone. But they'll definitely fall pregnant and potentially contract an infection or a disease by having unprotected sex.
For sure.
So let's also take, that initiative, that drive to read, continue, always teaching ourselves. As the world is also evolving, there's new things that are, coming out and whatnot. For example, you'll find something that maybe has also been used is someone will say they're allergic to latex condoms. There's non-latex condoms. They'll cost you slightly higher because they're a bit expensive, but there's that alternative there. Yeah. So we have room to also, learn, and there's information there. Now, is it, luxurious and very top, nice agencies that we can reach to? No. But is there something? Like, we don't have zero. The truth is, we don't have zero. We are somewhere. Now, let's take advantage of that, what we have, and hopefully now are able to reach a position where we can also improve upon the resources that we have. I don't know if I can mention it, but there's a hospital that goes by the name Marie, and she doesn't stop. I've seen she's always doing initiative. Anytime there's like a campus, whatever going on, I'll always see their banner, and they're always giving out flyers. Don't take that flyer, Nikawa, the one you're given in a supermarket, and stash it down your bag. Open it, read, look at what contraceptions are there. You, even as the adult, read, share it with your child. Just give them, if you're shy, that would be an avenue to start. Give them and then ask them questions. After I gave you this, what did you learn from that? Yeah, let's be proactive citizens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that proactivity, definitely. It's our responsibility. I had something recently. I don't think they were referring to the topics we were referring to. I think it was just like general knowledge. I can't remember even where I had this conversation, but they said basically at some point, I think they were referring to trauma or something. Yeah. They're like, okay, no trauma. At some point, it stops becoming people's fault that you don't know stuff or that you are not able to access things or, ABCD, because, when you become, an adult, maybe not like at 18, because at 18 you're still basically, for a lot of us, you're spending
your children.
You're still children, but it gets to a point in your life where you have to take responsibility. You have the personal autonomy to make decisions, and it is very murky. It's very ghetto, honestly. But I think that, you know, at some point it stops being, oh, my parents didn't invest in me not knowing about ABCD. It stops becoming my school did not. It now starts becoming, oh, well, great, but, you know, you can read, can you?
Yeah.
They made sure you can read. They made sure you have basic knowledge on what what your reproductive parts look like, even if it was not as correct. So now you take up the initiative from there and then see to it that you are educated. And for sure, that actually is very important for us to think about. I just briefly want to speak about the idea of shame. The whole reason why I personally am very interested in seeing to it that this podcast produces and that it's shared is this whole idea of shame. I have realized, you know, the time in Kenya when we were doing rejecting finance bill, that time, concurrently in my mind, the idea of shame was really prominent in my mind. And as we were speaking about rejecting the finance bill and how much corruption is costing our government, I just kept thinking around the same time, of course in addition to all those conversations, but I just kept thinking, I wish we could have the same discussion, but for shame. Shame really does cost us a lot of things. Shame really does cost us a lot. The fact that we don't want to openly have discussions, especially intergenerationally, on issues that have to do with sex. And even just within our generations. I think that having open and honest conversations on issues about sexual and reproductive health and rights, and even issues on mental health, is very important to help people to stop thinking that they are going through things alone. You know, for example, you know, when you start your periods, for example, that's usually, if it's not handled well, that's usually a very confusing time for, you know, young women. And, you know, for young men, the same for young men when they start, you know, having wet dreams and just that whole puberty period, or just as you advance through life. But if we have discussions behind closed doors and we don't want to openly speak about issues, people can feel very lonely and very isolated, and then that just leads to the mental overload. Because I think that warrants us speaking about. I mean, we really can't blame the people who feel, like, let's say in our case, you know, like our parents who feel some type of way speaking about sex-related issues to us. But then they inherited it from somewhere. And, you know, the ones who passed it down to them, you know, it is sort of intergenerational. But I think that we can intentionally choose to be very open. Of course, age appropriate. And of course, you know, not being very crude and very verbose, all those things, but just having very open and candid conversations around these issues so that we debunk the stigma around it and so that people stop feeling lonely and isolated. And so then the decisions that we make when we feel lonely and isolated from people are very questionable. And then it feeds the loop because you have an issue, you feel isolated, you make a very questionable case, and it comes back to that issue, and then it just becomes this vicious loop. So can you just speak to us, I mean, especially from a psychological perspective, what's this whole idea with shame?
Have you even put it, there's like stigma, shame, judgment.
Right.
They really are a barrier to well-being and individuals' well-being. And even just as a clinical psychologist, I mean, even you'd see, if you see a man or a woman in the marketplace, you see, they'd always say every marketplace had like there's already a lot of judgment cast upon that individual there at the marketplace.
You know?
He's a madman, there's this, there's that, there's already that. And all these things are barriers to getting the right help that you need. Even when, I know it is even an issue. Let me use myself again, where I felt when I started therapy way back. And I always thought, now I'll go there and probably I'll be diagnosed with something. What will now happen to me? I was very fresh into my classes. I still did not have that understanding. And that's really a myth and a misconception that's that's held by a lot of individuals. And I've had people tell me where they're just like, oh no, you only deal with madmen and women. That's not true. That is not true at all. Of course, there's people who have it harder than others, but that is not true. And even when it comes to, if you're seen buying, let's say, condom, or even talking about sex, or now you want to sleep with all the men.
Right.
That is not true.
It's not true.
And shame, stigma, judgment, whichever way you choose to put it, all these things really have a significant hindrance and barrier to our well-being, be it mental, be it reproductive and sexual health.
Yeah.
Because when you even think about it, think of even a young girl that has fallen pregnant, maybe in high school. That's already a lot there.
Yeah.
Now it's even double shame. The shame from her peers and the stigma from her peers, and then also the adults.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really do believe that I really strive. I'm not perfect, but I strive to try and handle situations, with a bit of a sober mind. And sometimes adults let down children. Yeah. They
true.
really let them down. And I see there's people out here who are advocates and they're really trying to do the job, and I hope it will be like a mass change that will happen eventually. But you cannot be sometimes discussing things in front of other children to shame another child. Yeah, that's one part of it. And even just within the adult context, but adult circles, another adult might be having a difficulty. We should have, that grace to handle it fairly and nicely without, using words that are quite condemning and putting them down and whatnot. For example, one of the things that I know people who sometimes struggle with mental health issues struggle with is being told they're lazy.
Right.
And they just want to sleep. But it's more than that. They're lazy. They're not, they're sleeping, yes, but they're not bathing. They're not showering. Their room is messy. Like, surely something should tell you something is off about this person. What can we do? And even beyond that, let me tell you, when one area fails, it's like a domino effect. If you don't fix it, all of you fall down. Because let's combine the two now. Mental health and reproductive health. Yeah. So let's start with the reproductive health part. This is individual A. Let's call it individual A, Stacy. Yeah. So Stacy does not have the access to information. She's not been taught correct information, has been denied. So even someone to tell her these things, there's no one. And also remember, family dynamics are different. So maybe even there's no caregiving figure that can be able to talk about this thing. The other thing is also about how we also delegate sexual and reproductive health and who holds that mantle. And mostly it's left to women.
Right.
Go talk to your mother. And there's really family units where they don't have a mother figure or vice versa or none at all. There's no adult there that will be able to sit them down. So you see, it's quite nuanced. There's a lot of things at play. Yeah. But anyway, here we have Stacy. So Stacy lacks information, basically she's green. As green as Stacy can come. Then she decides to have sex, right? Yeah. She does not understand exactly the implications that this have on her. Luckily for her, she only comes out of there with pregnancy. Stacy is 19. What happens? She carries the pregnancy, gives birth to the child. She's broke. Probably the boyfriend has left, or even if he's there, he's also a child. Yeah. Assuming that the same age, they don't know what to do. Yeah. This is now a new thing that has been pushed onto both of them. Yeah. Parenthood. Yeah. The child is forever crying. Maybe it's a colic baby. The child is, mental health in the pits. Yeah. They don't, assuming now in this context, they don't have support. Yeah. They're doing it all alone. No one is able to teach them. Tell me if that person can even hold a nice conversation with you and laugh and be cheery. Yeah. And you see that that's the ripple effect. Yeah. And even the shame that comes with, just the discrimination around sexuality. Yeah. Yeah. you shame someone, so they're not even able to ask you. For example, in homosexual relationships, you're not having what you'd say, quote unquote, conventional sex. So how do I still protect myself when I'm having sex with my partner? Also, what happens even with that, being able to, when we talk about access and even being able to get this information, be it materials or resources, is also in the event that a disease is contracted. Now, there's some that can be treated, there's some that cannot be treated. In the event that one that cannot be treated, for example, HIV is contracted, you see, it comes with, because we are also still fighting HIV AIDS stigma. How do we now take this person through the process of counseling them? You see, now mental health is coming in for them to be able to be to understand that the disease or the infection has been contracted, but it's not the end of the world. They can live, they can thrive, they can have a fulfilling life, they can be able to have children who are negative, they can still have a partnership. The only catch-22 is now they'll have to do more than the average Joe who does not have the disease. So they have to put in more precaution. So all these things here, if we are not talking about it, so if we are judging, if we are stigmatizing, if we are, aligning people, sidelining people, then we're really causing more harm than good at the end of the day.
For sure.
Because we want to reach a status quo in this nation, hopefully, where the new HIV rate infections are up to 0.
Right.
Sexually transmitted diseases have been reduced. So we're only managing what's there. And you see, that's the goal, hopefully. But if we are already struggling to just disseminate and teach because we are embarrassed to say, listen, what you watched in the porn, those people there, they've already tested. It's in fact, they're doing a job.
It's a job.
It's a job. And in their job description, they need to have a clean bill of health. The truth is, before you have sex with someone, you need to make sure, number one, you're tested. And this is to assume that you guys are having sex exclusively with each other. Now, beyond that, if you both have a clean bill of health, are you, protecting yourself, are you using contraception to prevent unintended or unplanned for pregnancies? Are you also, using protection to just protect yourself from other sexually transmitted infections and disease? But now if someone is going to test or is carrying a condom and we use words such as slut, whore, harlot, promiscuous, sleeping around, but then they're doing the thing that is best for them. At the end of the day, human beings have free will, unfortunately. That's it. We can't dictate, even for children, because there's children who have sex with children. So people who are in the same age group as children, it's true. It's a reality in our society. It does happen. But how do we explain to these children that, listen, at this age, you should be focusing on other things. But also, we remember that they have free will. We can talk until the blue moon comes. But they will do what they want to do. But the only thing that really will make them, as I said before, the thing that has made my experience better for me is that I was put in spaces where I was given information. And that looked like I had a counseling center. I had someone who always, when they had HIV week runs in school, they put it at a strategic place where if you're in campus that whole week, there's no way utakosa kuiona.
Right.
So you'll go there, you'll inquire, you'll test. You'll go there, they'll give you information. They even had, I remember one drive where they had, if you didn't feel like comfortable testing there, they give you the self-testing kit for you to go home with. But then you have to write your information so that they're able to get back to you in the event that you need more help and more support. Really, when it even comes to shame, it's like shame for who exactly?
Right.
And it's still there. It is, and there's, of course, I acknowledge, and we have to acknowledge that there's other things that set precedence for shame. For example, it can be religion, religious affiliations, or upbringing, also socializations.
Yeah.
Those are things that we can't be blind to. But then that's one part of the conversation.
Yeah.
The other part of the conversation has to be, at the end of the day, really, what is the greater good? The greater good is we want a healthy system with healthy humans. We want humans where if something happens, something tragic happens, we're able to donate blood easily.
Yeah.
We want a society where in the event that even people get infected, we're able to contain so that we don't have new infections.
Yeah.
We want to reach a space where we want certain things to be a thing of the past. We're only managing what we currently have to deal with. And that comes when we're also able to be really, truly honest with ourselves. Well, you're shaming me for what? Okay, I've carried the condom in my past and I protected myself against unplanned and unintended pregnancy. I protected myself against infection.
For sure.
I was honest with myself. Yeah. So what next?
What was the judgment?
And of course also, just because we acknowledge that there's other things that set precedence for shame or stigma, for example, socialization, religious affiliations, and all other things that can be there. The language that we can use, I know this one is assuming everyone is on the same level, but of course, depending on where individuals are, you guide appropriately. Yeah. For example, if someone is a Christian, their beliefs are totally different. The belief is probably in the line of, okay, you're having sex in the context of marriage, right? Yeah. But even in that context of marriage, what are you doing in your marriage to protect yourself as a unit? Yeah.
Definitely. This has been very delightful, Stacey. Thank you so much for your time.
Asante, thank you for having me. Please invite me again.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. The Wellness Junction Podcast is a production of Pamoja community-based organization. It is supported by the Northwestern University Access to Health Project with production assistance from Studio Spain Media Group. Please take a moment to follow the Wellness Junction Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. To learn more about how Pamoja CBU has impacted young people's lives over the past 15 years, please visit our website at www.pamojapamoja.org or our social media pages that are linked in the show notes. I have been your host, Jordana, and I can't wait to connect with you in the next one. Thank you for being here.